Welcome to the BroPolar disorder.
Welcome. I just want to interrupt your flow for a second and see how well you responded. Let's see if you still have that stand. Let's see if you still have that stand-up intuition.
Well, I never got heckled in the crowd.
Well, see, here we go. It's the first time for everything.
Welcome to the BroPolar Disorder podcast. We're going to be covering another cryptid of sorts today, all the way from West Virginia.
Yeah, great stuff.
Which is
the Almost Heaven State. There was actually a couple. That's not the current motto for it.
West Virginia is the Almost Heaven State.
Well, I think they're pulling it from the song.
I find that hard to believe.
Yeah, West Virginia is wild and wonderful.
West Virginia, wild.
Remember that? Remember that documentary, Wild and Wonderful Whites of West Virginia? Crazy documentary.
How do you know these things? Where did you watch?
It's about a criminal family.
What was this on Pluto TV?
No, dude, I watch a lot of weird documentaries, but it's a crime family from West Virginia that sells pills and stuff. I know that took a weird turn.
So wild. This
wild
is
and wonderful.
On. Whoever's naming these states really knows.
Yeah, dude, they pegged it good because wild and wonderful. It's a crazy documentary.
I always hated driving through West Virginia.
Yeah, it's the worst.
I loved it, but I hated it.
It's gorgeous
because it is
gorgeous.
Really pretty.
Yeah, it's
but it's mountain roads the whole time, and all of the cities are this thin. And they're really long. I think we drove by Morgantown.
Yeah.
Which is where the University of West Virginia is. I
just want to get to the windshield wiping, and then we can actually keep going with this.
Okay, so, we're speaking about Mothman today, by the way. We never did say it.
Yeah.
But he's from West Virginia.
Yeah, wild and wonderful.
And it was the hot... Gosh. All right. This train has derailed.
It already, I know. But I thought of it as we said,
at Union Station.
So you guys are visiting me. I'm at Fort Bragg.
Spring break.
Me and my wife had just had our firstborn.
Right. You're at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, which is close to Fayetteville.
And you and our mutual best friend come to visit. Oh, wow. Just doxed him. Just doxed him.
Okay, well, we'll cut that.
Yeah. So
do we have
you and one of our mutual best friends comes to come visit out.
Right.
In Fort Bragg.
Okay.
So yeah, you and one of our mutual best friends
who I just doxed, which we had to cut.
You did dox him hard, bro.
That's not appropriate. I think he would have appreciated it.
Unless we get canceled, then he gets canceled
by proxy, just by being associated with us,
which would be something that would happen to him.
He's like, "No, I'm not bipolar. I'm not bipolar.
That's not me. You got the wrong guy."
Okay, so we go there. I don't know what year it was.
2013.
Wow.
Well, we just had our firstborn.
Okay. So we go out there. Spring break.
Yeah.
It's just him and I.
Yeah, you guys were going to do something crazy, and I peer pressured you.
No, we were thinking about going somewhere, and you said, why don't you come out, to visit me, Fort Bragg, because I hadn't seen you in a while, because you decided to join the Army and abandon the entire college house. Yeah, on a whim. Literally on a whim.
But let's get to the important West Virginia
We're driving through West Virginia, or right when we get into West Virginia, it starts pouring rain.
Yeah, downfall.
It's pouring.
Because I believe you, but our friend...
And also, if you didn't know, that week...
very... I guess, I would believe... If he told me the Falcon Monster was real or the Mothman was real, I'd believe him.
Yes. He is an extremely trustworthy source.
So when he says it's pouring rain...
It was pouring rain.
I imagine, in Forrest Gump when it just won't let up.
Right. And we're driving through the night, too. We had to leave late. So it's nighttime, West Virginia, pouring rain, going through the mountains. And I don't know if you knew this, but that week is when the entire eastern seaboard decided that all of the semi-trucks should travel the same route that we're going to so that it can typhoon us with water. So it's pouring rain. Windshield wipers were working before, but nobody does the check, right? They say check your windshield wipers before you start driving all the. But I think they were working.
I checked now because of this story.
Well,
Cut 2. Ducks 2.
Extremely responsible person.
Yeah.
So he would have known if there was a mechanical failure. But he didn't know because there was a mechanical failure. And one of our wipers was working like normal. And the other one had like broken the
driver
arm.
side or passenger was working?
Driver was not. Passenger
even
was.
worse.
Yeah.
Even
worse.
worse.
It was connected, but then it like swung out. If you didn't know, they like get longer. And it was swinging out and it wouldn't do anything.
Wow.
It would come up and then it would go like it would snap like a slingshot. It would grind like but it wouldn't like wipe any of the water.
Like the mechanism was stuck.
So we actually had to, at one point we were reaching out the window to manually wipe it as we're driving in the mountains.
That's wild.
And then we decided to just turn them off because it was easier to just pray and try to see.
But you guys
through
made
the
a
pouring
contraption
rain.
at some point, didn't you?
We did.
See, the way he described it is that you guys had attached a string to the
That's
wiper.
exactly
You guys had
right.
stopped
We
to try to like
stopped
refocus this trip. And you guys attached a
at
string to the
McDonald's. We
wiper.
stopped, yeah.
And you like pulled the string through the window so that way you can like pull it rhythmically,
That's
almost
right.
like it was a windshield wiper. So
Right.
essentially creating
So the driver
windshield wiper.
is, like in Home Alone when he's doing like the dancing, he's pulling the windshield wiper on the driver's side as he's driving. And then like we would switch off. But it rained, like the storm followed us, right? Which makes sense because it really traveled.
It had to been cold. Like it was March in the Appalachian
It
Mountains.
snowed on the way back, but
Yeah.
it was not warm.
Yeah,
But-
that had to have been miserable.
And the windows like kind of down. We're getting like soaked. It was not fun. Like looking back, it was fun, but and then then we just played NHL the entire week.
yeah, we had like big plans that got kind of like just tossed.
We were gonna go
for, like,
golfing.
what we used to do.
Yeah, we were gonna go golfing.
Yeah.
At Pinehurst, we were trying to because it's by Pinehurst.
Yeah. But we
and we
couldn't
just
get on
had
the
no
course.
follow through.
Yeah,
But anyway,
there's been some really weird stuff going on in the news. I don't know if you've been. There's a ton of weird stuff. Let me just preface that we had talked about one thing that got us laughing pretty good that I know you had wanted to bring up a little bit.
yeah, I mean the spy balloons are crazy to me.
Weather balloon.
They're
Officially, it's still a weather balloon. This is
who's
number
sending
2.
the weather balloons?
So the first one was from
well, if
China.
it's a weather balloon, shouldn't it just say the Weather Channel on it?
Well, the first weather balloon was from China. Well, weather balloon just allows it to go up into the upper altitudes. So it's a
Right,
different
okay.
type of balloon.
Okay, but
The
can
first
we
one
not
is
decipher-
really kind of China claims it's not a spy balloon, but we shot it down. Second one, they spotted
What do
over
they need our
Colorado.
weather for?
Well, they don't. They just want to spy on us. But the
That's
second
exactly why I said spy balloon.
So the second one though, that one was spotted by military over Colorado, which I was thinking like, man, that is if it is from a foreign country, that's made it a long ways to be seen. I mean, Colorado, that's pretty deep into the, like, you've crossed the Pacific.
Yeah, I mean, but think about it. Like World War II, Pearl Harbor, those planes from Japan made it a
Yeah,
long
but we're in 2024. Our radar technology is way better.
Oh yeah, I mean,
But that being said, though, we see it, and we had a couple different theories.
well, yeah, I mean, one, it's I just assume it's a spy balloon. I mean, I've never seen. Have you seen a weather balloon?
I've never even seen
Make
one in
news?
person, so no.
Like, I'm sure they existed.
Yeah,
right?
the only other one I saw was the one we shot down.
Right. So we chose not to shoot this one down, I guess.
Yeah, they said they're not going to
It's
shoot
not
it
a
down.
threat.
It's not a threat. I'd still shoot it down.
I would shoot it down
I'd make a statement.
immediately.
I'd shoot
You
down
d-
with
okay.
some heavy armament, too.
Like what?
It would look like in Coneheads when he shoots off that firework. It just almost like a nuclear-looking explosion in the air. Like I'd make a statement, you know?
Oh, yeah. You remember when I lit those firecrackers behind you?
No, we're not going in that yet. So what do you think? I mean, so you had some pretty
So,
funny...
yeah, I think, what if it's like, around the world in 80 days type of thing? Or what if it's like an engagement
So you
What
think
if
it's more of like a hot air balloon?
A hot air weather balloon, like a high altitude balloon. But like maybe the guy that's
What does
running
this
the
even
balloon,
look like? What is you're on a hot air balloon.
wicker basket.
What's your name?
I'm Steve.
I'm going to be Elizabeth.
Elizabeth.
I don't know. I just chose a female name.
What is this, 1840?
Hello. It's Mrs. Doubtfire. Hello.
Okay, I'm Steve, you're Elizabeth. We're in a wicker basket.
Oh, man. Well, do I have to do an accent? I'm not great at accents.
You don't have to do an accent. It's in America.
I'm going to try. All right, you start it.
But if it's Chinese, you're going to do Mandarin?
Oh, no.
It's most likely a Chinese, or it could be Russian.
Let's just pretend they speak really good English.
They're fluent, right? They're well studied.
Yeah.
They're spies.
Okay.
Okay.
And they're
But
proposing.
he's proposing.
Yeah, but in this thing, it's not a Chinese spy balloon. You're just a hot air balloon proposing.
It's up. Okay, they're not spies. This is a hot air balloon, but somehow got to cruising altitude.
Okay.
And he's going to propose
Okay.
to you, but you don't know.
John, it's beautiful.
I'm Steve. Who's John? You've been cheating on me.
I thought your name was John.
I bring you up to 30,000 feet and you're cheating on me? This is the moment you tell me?
Oh,
I have every opportunity.
I don't do
to end
improv.
you.
I'm not great at improv.
You just I'm crushed.
I
Okay.
met Steve.
Oh, yes. People make mistakes all the time. Don't worry.
It's beautiful up here.
I just wanted to let you know that you're the love of my life.
What is that thing coming towards us at a rampant speed?
Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. There's nothing there. You just need to focus on us and our love. And I get down on one knee.
And I just keep looking over the side.
And I tell you, don't look at that. Don't look at that.
Seems to be getting a lot closer.
Stop looking for John. Look at me. And I say to you, will you make me the happiest man in the world?
And as I go to response, this is
Perfect
terrible.
ending.
What's most terrible, honestly, isn't even that story. It was my accent there.
Well, I don't think you had an accent. I think you were trying to play. You were just trying to be effeminate.
Yeah, my feminine voice needs work.
Well, I mean, you have a beard, so I don't think
Yeah.
anybody's gonna think.
And I botched your name right off the get-go. I would not be a great actor.
It's not that bad because I found out you were cheating on me while we were in the.
We both just get imploded by.
Yeah, I mean the
heat-seeking
heartbreak
missile.
alone.
The
this
heat-seeking
was
missile
fitting.
takes us out. Okay.
Yeah. So, what would you say? I was thinking about this the other day because I was doing kind of like a reflection on things that I was getting like anxious with. Because there's triggers with like being bipolar.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, especially you being diagnosed. Some of us are not.
Just keep going back to that. You
It's
love
not a slam.
going back
It's not
to
a
that.
slam. It's not a slam at all. Because the only reason I didn't do it is because I could, say that about you.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a slam. I mean, but the only reason I'm not diagnosed is because I just haven't done it.
Yeah.
And it just takes a long time to kind of come to terms with. You don't want it to be an identifier,
Yeah, that's
right?
a
You don't
that's
want
a
it
big
to label
struggle, I
you
think.
like.
I don't. Before this podcast, I really didn't tell anybody besides people in our family, obviously my immediate family. But it's not like something I have conversations with my kids about regularly. So it's something I still feel awkward about.
Right. And I didn't want to. I don't know. It's kind of one of those things where you're like, okay, does this have to be everything about me now? Does that do I have to lead with that?
Yeah, I think there's.
hey,
Well, I think
can I get you?
there's a lot of
I'm
bad
bipolar.
apples.
I'd like 20 McNuggets, and that's it.
I think there's a lot of bad apples because you get people who use it as an excuse to be jerks.
Mm-hmm.
You get people who use it as an excuse to excuse their behavior, which I'm not saying it will. Sometimes, you're going through rough spots and so you act a little bit differently, but it's not an excuse. It doesn't excuse the behavior that you do.
Right.
It's just something that you're suffering with. and that you need to, address.
Right. But it's completely controllable. But I was thinking about something. I mean, I don't, I mean, in our state, at least. But something that I was thinking about is what makes me anxious. Like, what's my trigger? And I think everybody has triggers, whether you have bipolar disorder or not. Right.
So what'd you find yours was?
I'm a pretty existential person. I find myself living in the future a lot.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about how does this, almost like a butterfly effect, kind of, how does this decision affect
how is it going to ripple?
every single thing I'm going to do for the rest of my life?
Yeah, you're Ashton Kutcher.
Don't you ever say that to me again. I'm
You said
Sean
butterfly
William Scott.
effect.
I know what you were doing.
Well, you seem confused. This is one of Chad's biggest pet peeves. So if he went back on his anxious, what makes him most anxious is existential. Is that I'm going to make him pretend he doesn't know what he's talking about.
I know exactly what I'm talking about, Nick. I'm getting heated.
I can see
There's
you.
no airflow.
That's why I said we need the fan.
I'm getting hot. I'm getting red.
All right. So,
But I am very existential. I'm always looking into the future. How does this decision, small decision, a job I take, place I live, whatever. I mean, so those are kind of big, but in the grand scheme of things, they're not. And you end up living in the future, which becomes a problem. That's why, like, I'm also very hyper aware of my faith and what I believe in that, because that's an eternity question. And that's like, as long as I'm like progressing toward that end, then that's good. But
I think
the problem is it chains you and it paralyzes you from making decisions, because I don't want to seem as I'm haphazard about the decisions I make in my life, because I know the impact that they can have. And I think that also comes from a lack of trust and faith at times.
Yeah.
And so that's where I've had to really grow and improve as a person.
Yeah, I think like what makes me most anxious, as a lot of parents I think can relate, is your children's future. Not so much your future anymore, just like there's a lot of crazy stuff happening in the world. And so, you envision your child when you have one to have this like beautiful life, this like everything's working out for them. But that's not realistic. It's unfair to put those expectations on your child. Like, they're going to go through some trials and turbulence and in their life. And, that makes me anxious as a father. The one thing I would say, though, that I guess kind of helps me out is I remember that, like, being depressed, which I've had some depression issues in the past, but being depressed, that's really stems from, like, being very worried about the past. Like hyper focusing on the past.
Yeah.
I'm something happened and I can't let it go. I have unresolved trauma. I can't let it go. I'm thinking about the good times and comparing them to my times. Whereas anxiety, it's a fear of the unknown. I'm not knowing of what's to come, and that makes me afraid. So if we really break it down, anxiety is really just being afraid of what's to come. And I think that you could be...
but that's exactly what I was saying is...
But you could be a man of faith and still be walking the walk and still be afraid of what's to come in your trials. Like,
well, interestingly enough, it says, do not be afraid 365 times in the Bible. I'm not kidding.
That's crazy.
So everybody's like, that's
days
one for every day. Yeah. And I took out of that God is going to scare you every day for the rest of your life.
I mean, every day
but
I open the news and there's something else that scares me.
Right. And so I think it really is, especially now, in any time period, you can always say, everybody's always saying, especially now, it's so much harder. But I do think that, like, I've had to go through a lot of testing periods.
Yeah.
I've been through a lot of crap.
Yeah.
And totally willing to air my dirty laundry right here, right now. Not going to do it. No, but, I've had to walk through that, and it, whether you're a believer or not, like, that will strengthen you. It strengthened my faith like 1,000-fold.
Yeah.
And it gave me a better identity and clarity on who I am and what I'm pursuing. But I think even if you're not a believer, like going through trials and tribulations,
and realizing that you're going to be okay in the end.
right?
That's the big thing. It's like, you put almost these fears on this pedestal that I can't overcome it, but then they come and then you overcome it. It's not that bad.
Right.
I'm anxious about doing this speech tomorrow. I don't have a speech, but in school,
what's
like
this speech I'm hearing about?
but in school though, that's like public speaking is one of the number one fears.
Right. I think I think the anticipation.
Yeah, but when
so
you do
much
the speech
worse.
and after you're done, you're like, man, that wasn't
But it's
that bad.
just like getting a job. Like, oh my gosh, I got to do this, or getting a new place. And once you get in, it's like, oh, that wasn't a big deal.
Yeah.
And once you get started in a speech, usually, I mean, some people, they freak. They freak.
I remember making you anxious was when Grandma Barb would visit.
Oh my god.
Because that meant X-Files every single night.
Before bed.
Right before bed.
I was 6.
It was one of my best times of my life.
I don't understand. I mean, this is why we're talking about Mothman and
the cryptids. That's really why we began. I think I mentioned in the Falk episode, but X-Files played a huge part of our childhood.
It really did on VHS.
Yeah, but we used to watch it live too. If you don't remember, like when Grandma Barb came to visit, we were living in Vermont, and I swear
remember times of pure terror.
Well, here's the thing about
the
X-Files.
oddity about it.
It's a phenomenal show if you haven't watched it. If you're big into like sci-fi, kind of like paranormal stuff, it's an amazing show. Great cast, great storyline.
David Duchovny.
And I mean, that's probably why I feel like I'm big into conspiracy theories, the paranormal. Like, I mean, X-Files it had everything you wanted.
Right.
The thing is if you watch that show and you live in a rural location, it's 10 times scarier.
Yeah, and we were always in a rural location.
Yeah,
we never got to choose where we lived, being a Navy
because she lived
family.
in rural Illinois on a farmhouse,
right?
And a lot of those episodes involve like either aliens or just oddities,
right? But when we would go back home from the East Coast, we'd go back to the Midwest to visit family, and we would make our trip to her place and spend a couple nights. It was X-Files and ice cream at night
every night.
Horrible.
I loved it. It was like the best time of my life. When she came out to visit, but in Vermont especially.
Vermont's even creepier.
She stayed a whole summer.
Pitch black.
And she stayed a whole summer.
Oh, that's right.
And so we watched X-Files almost every night, whether it would be on tape or just on live TV. We'd watch X-Files almost every night. And that really messed with you. Because
we had a wood furnace.
Yeah, in the basement too. So my parents rented this house in Vermont. And the guy was awesome. The guy who rented to us was awesome. And he kept all of his stuff behind this blue tarp. It was like a long, like almost like you're about to get murdered by a serial killer. It's just a long running blue tarp.
Like a Dexter room.
Yeah. And in order to get to the furnace,
this guy was not a serial killer. Let's let that be known.
Yeah, no, he was a great dude. But in order to get to the furnace, though, you had to go through this blue tarp.
Yeah.
Run, turn on the dangling like light bulb,
like the
chain.
beaded metal thing.
Yeah. You had to. But it had to be one motion because it was pitch black back there. So you had to run. I just remember me and you just running for our lives, blowing through the tarp like a linebacker, pulling that chain to get the light on, just chucking wood in this furnace, closing it, and then running. Whoever was the second person behind.
It was definitely the furnace from Home Alone.
Would pull that chain. But I remember a couple times, either you were angry at me or I was angry at you. The move was, if you were in front, you would pull it. So the person behind you would just be petrified.
Yeah.
Running back up these stairs. And I mean,
there could be hands reaching through the stairs.
Yeah. When that chain was still before the tarp, so you still had to go through this dang tarp before you can get back to light.
You see, there are some things details I don't remember. Like a lot of this, I really didn't remember.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad I don't, because
it was terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
we're in the middle of nowhere, Vermont. Grandma's visiting.
Yeah.
And she loved X-Files.
Yeah. She's probably honestly
she was also like
the biggest X-Files fan that I think
100%.
exists on this planet.
100%.
She has every episode taped. She's watched them all almost till like the tape.
She loved to get up to shenanigans.
Yeah.
Like the time we was just walking through. I don't even know how we found in like a crabapple orchard.
No, they ran.
remember?
The crabapple trees ran the whole length of our road in Vermont. We lived in very.
We had all
rural.
those blackberries that were like giant. Remember,
Yeah.
like Avatar blackberries?
Yeah,
They were huge.
yeah.
I didn't really remember the apple trees though.
But
I was too young.
the crabapple trees ran the length of our rural road, so we would pick them up
Oh yeah.
as we walked back to the house.
But then she started chucking them at us.
well, it was a game we were playing.
We were having fun. It was like dodgeball.
Me and Chad would stand in front of this wood barn.
Yeah, it was like a firing squad.
It wasn't really a barn. I guess it was like a wood shed. It was a big one though.
Yeah,
and
I remember this.
Grandma
Like,
Barb would just hurl. I'm talking.
She
with
would
some,
take a bite of it and then throw it.
and with some heat.
Yeah, she had an arm.
And she'd throw them, and we'd be dodging them. We'd just be laughing and giggling, like, missing these crab apples, and they'd just be exploding against the barn door.
Exploding behind us.
And, we didn't even know it wasn't even, like, an appropriate game, to be playing as a kid.
She was the authority, and it was good for her.
Until my mom came out. And then she was livid. And that was the end of our crab apple game.
Yeah. On to Mothman.
Yeah, which is even creepier.
Creepier than crab apples getting launched. Okay, let's do it.
So let's get back to West Virginia.
West Virginia.
Wild and
out of
wonderful.
Vermont, back into West Virginia. The high state. What was it called again?
The wild and wonderful.
Wild and wonderful state. There it is.
High state?
I don't know.
So, yeah.
It's the show me state.
Yeah.
Show me what?
The Mothman. Show me
There's
the
a lot of
Mothman.
other things Missouri can show.
So this is taking place in Point Pleasant, West Virginia.
Okay.
So 1774.
1774.
I'm doing a little bit of a back origin.
So
It's gonna
this
be
guy
quick.
was in the Revolution.
Wait, this is good. This is some creepy stuff.
Okay.
1774. The Mingo and the Shawnee tribes, which are living in this area, they try to stop American settlers from taking their land, encroaching on their land. And the Y-Files on YouTube has an awesome bit on Mothman. Really recommend watching it. It's probably my favorite source on this so far. But on October 10th, Chief Cornstalk, who's the Shawnee tribe chief.
Wait, like Shoney's?
Yeah, exactly.
Like-
So
Why did they do that? Why did they make a breakfast place out of this?
spelled different, but yeah.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. So
Well, maybe that's just like some dude that made like
They stole
great
it.
pancakes last night.
like many
my
things
name's
were
Todd
stolen.
Shoney, not to be confused with the Native American tribe.
So October 10th, the Chief Cornstalk leads a battle against 1,000 Virginia militiamen. It goes to a super bloody hand-to-hand combat. But however, the militiamen come out victorious, and Chief Cornstalk is forced to sign a peace treaty.
In West Virginia.
Yeah.
In 74.
Mm-hmm.
1774.
However, this peace treaty, as one can imagine, is not held in the greatest, tight esteem by the settlers. So Chief Cornstalk and his son later returned to the area, which is now Fort Randolph, to tell Captain Arbuckle that their treaty was being violated.
It was an honor system treaty?
Yeah, it was hey, they had a peace treaty that came from that battle. But it was being violated by the settlers, and so they came to say, hey, our treaty's being violated. And they also came to say, hey, the English are trying to recruit, because 1774, something else is going on. And
What were they? They were trying to recruit them?
the English were trying to recruit them to
The
fight
Native
the
Americans. Right.
Colonists. And so Chief Cornstalk and his son were immediately taken captive. So
By the colonists?
at Fort Randolph.
They found out, hey, they've got information that we want. We're
Yeah,
just
more than
gonna-
likely, I'd
Did they
imagine
just
so.
beat it out of them?
But bad timing. But an American, a young American, was killed by Native Americans in the area. And a mob storms the fort, brutally executing Chief Cornstalk, his son, and 2 tribe hostages. So what gets even creepier, an article titled Cornstalk Shawnee Chief by Beverly Two Feathers, which is on NativeAmericanTotems.com.
Shawnee, not Shoney.
Yeah, Shawnee.
I thought you said Shoney.
I may have slipped.
I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
this makes more sense.
I thought it
now.
said Shawnee.
You might have.
I think you made a jump. His
The heat.
But according to Beverly Two Feathers, which is she wrote an article on NativeAmericanTotems.com, and they have a quote. I was the borderman's friend. Many times I have saved him and his people from harm. I never warred with you, but only to protect our wigwams and lands. I refused to join our pale-faced enemies with the redcoats. I came to the fort as your friend, and you murdered me. You murdered by my side my young son. For this, may the curse of the Great Spirit rest upon this land. May it be blighted by nature. May it even be blighted by its hopes. May the strength of its people be paralyzed by the stain of our blood. And that was Chief Cornstalk, November 10th, 1777.
Wait, he said this on his deathbed? Like he's
those
dying.
were his last words.
He got all that out?
I'm sure they let him say his last words, like his last rites, and they executed.
Oh, okay. He wasn't like bleeding out like, hey, I got something to say real quick. And he had this whole speech
I don't think
prepared.
he mustered that up after being beaten to death.
That's what I was picturing. So the picture was wrong.
So just a little bit of creepiness going on in this land, blind land.
It's got.
So, I mean, and then now you plug it 200 years later, we're going to 1966.
Which is a crazy time.
Yeah.
Let's lay that out. You got Andy Warhol.
I would say Vietnam lighting off, but
okay, I was setting the stage. Okay,
but Andy Warhol's definitely up there.
You had bell bottom. Nick, we're getting into. Nick's a very critical brother. But if I were the older brother, I would be much more protective of you. You know that?
Oh, I'm sorry. I feel like I do protect you.
Just kidding.
So
we had Andy Warhol. Okay, go ahead.
So we flash forward 200 years, 1966, Clendenin, West Virginia. Two gravediggers see a massive flying creature looking like a massive brown human figure flying from treetop to treetop. Treetop to treetop.
Tropical trees. Tree drops.
So you just hit me on
palm trees in West Virginia.
So, yeah. So that's like the true first real sighting of Mothman.
The gravediggers.
The two gravediggers.
Could it start any creepier?
I know.
Curse on the land, gravediggers see him. Gotta be a demon.
Just pulling on their
get into that
cigs
later.
in between graves. Just, did you see that thing?
They've probably seen some stuff.
I would go home. I'd be done. I'd probably put in my 2 weeks.
Honestly, Nick, if they're grave digging,
that's probably not the weirdest thing they've seen.
No.
So
and maybe they need the work.
allthingsinteresting.com has some really cool articles on kind of like the beginnings of Mothman. And they state that 3 days later, two couples were driving near the abandoned TNT plant on the land. And they come across a 7-foot-tall beast with large white wings and red eyes.
Wait, this is kind of an Acme, like a Looney Tunes, like an abandoned TNT plant.
Yeah, I mean, we're post-World War II. We're through the Cold War. So, I mean, we've ramped up a lot of military. There's a lot of mining in West Virginia.
I just feel like TNT is like the, and like the... Well, I mean, it is definitely that, but like...
Well, that's also what they want you to believe.
Like,
that's what they're making there. I mean...
You think they're making moths and men together?
Maybe it is an experimental factory.
Like X-Men? Like it's a mutant lab? I mean, when did X-Men come out?
63?
Hey.
I know.
We're on to something.
So, anyways, they come across this Mothman, which they don't know is Mothman, but they know it as a beast, and is about 7 foot tall, with large white wings, red eyes, and...
The gravediggers saw that?
No, this is the two
TNT.
couples.
I'm sorry, yes, at the TNT plant.
I'm losing you all over the place.
You're not losing me, Nick. You're pushing me away. That's what's happening.
So they drive up, and it sees them, and it doesn't look like it means them harm, and wants to kind of avoid them. So at first it takes off into the air, and so they're like, okay, well now they're creeped out, so they hit the gas, and it starts following them. So then they go faster and faster, and then soon they're going over 90 miles an hour. They report upwards towards 100 miles an hour.
They're going bootlegger speed.
Yeah, they're going quick, and it says it's like pushing them out to the outskirts of town.
Okay.
And that it is flying at the same pace that they're driving. So it is keeping up with them, and it even surpasses them at one moment, which gives them like a close look at this Mothman. It flies over the top of their car and passes them before landing in a field and kind of like awkwardly scurrying into the woods. This is terrible at running. Great at flying.
It's a terrible
weakness is running. Can't run well. So they had really stocky legs too.
He had really stocky legs.
Really stocky legs. So I just think
he just hobbled into the woods.
Hey, you guys.
Sloth just going into the woods.
So yeah, so just awkwardly runs out into the woods. And this is now the talk of the town, obviously. They go and they do an article, and that article is in the Athens Messenger. And
so they went to the news. Did they go to the police or did they go to the news?
I think they probably went to the police first, but the news, the Athens Messenger picks it up for an article. Found monster, no joke for those who saw it. And
which I'm sure creeped people out, because when was like a lot of that early horror stuff was coming out in that time.
Yeah, I mean,
like 50s and 60s, like War of the Worlds.
And in the 50s,
that's all I had was War of the Worlds.
There was a Batman. Batman's huge at this point.
That is true.
And the show was massive in the 60s.
Was that the funnier one?
Yeah, that's the like onomatopoeia, pow, kapow, all that stuff. That's the Batman that a lot of people will think of when you say the Batman show.
Well, that was
But the actual comic book, though, in the 50s, has a killer moth. And so a lot of people think that's how it gets its name, Mothman. Because, it's just a giant creature with red eyes and wings and human.
I need pictures of Mothman.
Now you're just combining all kinds of universes.
They are different. Marvel and
Jameson is just now working with Batman.
Okay.
So, so they
Back
see
to
this
the smart
thing.
one.
They're freaking out. They're freaking out. But, this news article runs because now there's thousands of people coming out to this place to find them, to find Mothman.
Okay.
Cops aren't even worried about the people. They're worried about the thousands of guns that these people have brought to shoot this Mothman. And I was thinking to myself when I read that, I was like, imagine all these people just drunk.
Just an armory.
Shotguns, rifles, pistols.
Where did they all gather to find this thing?
On this, it's in a state park near the abandoned TNT park.
Where they thought they saw it enter, the two couples where they saw it enter the woods, that's where everybody congregated?
No, just kind of where, near this abandoned TNT.
Oh, okay.
And
near
into
the abandoned
this,
TNT
bigger
place.
state park.
Right.
I think it's a 10,000 acre park, but they were all kind of congregated towards, this. And you got to think, it's a super rural West Virginia.
Right.
You have 1,000, cars. The infrastructure isn't meant to, handle that kind of traffic. So
mount up.
Yeah. So this is all anyone could talk about until the Silver Bridge collapses. And
the Silver Bridge, what year?
So I think they said 1967 was the Silver Bridge collapse. 1967, December 15th, 1967, Silver Bridge collapsed over the Ohio River. And this is coming from that allthat'sinteresting.com article. But it kills 46 people, injures 9. So
serious collapse. People were traveling it.
Yeah. And I-beam on the bridge failed due to poor design and construction. And at this time, the government wasn't really inspecting bridges like they should have. And this is a massive bridge. And so when it collapses, all those cars pour into the Ohio River. Unfortunately, like I said, 46 died. And so immediately the shift goes from Mothman to the Silver Bridge incident. And so all the focus now is on this terrible disaster that happened in their community.
Are you planting a seed for a conspiracy there?
It's not really a conspiracy, but a lot of people...
was a diversion from some sort of mutant technology that we were unveiling.
You know what? That's something I didn't even really read, which is not a bad theory.
I'm an intuitive person, and I'm a guy with good ideas. And I think maybe they were diverting people's attention away.
Yeah, I mean, that wasn't something
was not supposed to be seen. That got out. It scurried out. Its dusty little wings. It flew out. Obviously, didn't run.
It's like pixie dust behind it, just moth dust.
Yeah, nasty.
It's gross.
But the only thing that can take him down, mothballs, and those smell worse.
So I'm gonna get us back a little bit on track, but
okay.
That's not a bad theory, though. But that's not one I had read about. But it's not a bad theory that
insane to kill 46 people. Though.
It would be.
Yeah,
that is kind of in the realm of conspiracy theories, though. And however, most of the people that are still kind of hyperfixated on Mothman are starting to believe that the Mothman sighting was kind of like a prophetic, harbinger of there will be a disaster. Like he's bringing a message that bad stuff is about to happen. And so they kind of like lash back onto this Mothman.
So is he the bringer of death or just the messenger?
They more saw him as the messenger. Now, a couple people reported seeing him on the bridge, but that wasn't a widespread like belief, beforehand. Some people claim that they had saw him on the bridge before the disaster, but again, that's not like a commonly held belief.
Yeah, but nobody saw him like beating on that I-beam, like
he's just yanking on it. Just, I'm taking this thing down.
Yeah.
No, nothing like that. Nothing of the sorts. But they do kind of like are trying to like apply like the Mothman to this disaster in any way possible.
Right.
And so they're saying like, he's like bringing a prophecy of disaster and destruction.
Which is great for the black coats.
And the
black suits rather.
I think this is a good time to introduce like John Keel. And he wrote the book Mothman Prophecies, which they eventually made a movie with Richard Gere, if anyone remembers.
We'll get to him in a second.
Richard Gere?
Yeah.
You think he's the Mothman?
I've got a lot of theories about Richard Gere.
He's just, been...
I'm only gonna get my answers if I'm face to face with Richard.
Yeah, well, he'll be one of our first guests. Richard's gonna be
we'll
on.
Reach out.
Where were you during the Mothman sightings?
What?
Richard has 24 hours to respond where he was.
Well, I mean, think about it. He's probably born in 50s.
I imagine so. That sounds good.
He's probably 70 something, right?
So you think he was like 12 when he was the Mothman?
Have you ever seen the Mothman and Richard Gere in the same room, Nick?
I mean, kind of in the movie.
In
Mothman
the movie,
Prophecy.
And it was him.
So
I mean, all the burden of proof is against him right now. And he has to prove it.
So anyways, John Keel, though, he writes this book called Mothman Prophecies, and in it, he kind of makes a lot of stuff up.
Oh, he does?
He kind of expands on the Mothman.
Is this a fiction book?
It is a fiction book. And I honestly some of the, like, it's hard to read on some of this stuff because a lot of this stuff from the websites are going to be very pro Mothman exists.
Of course.
So it's sometimes
black screen, red
hard,
letters,
and that's why honestly my favorite source on this is the Y-Files on YouTube, because they kind of like give a nice like skeptical position while giving all the facts around it.
I think the skeptical position is the most respectful position, because if all you're doing is gaslighting and all you're doing is just pumping heat into this thing, then it just sounds like a wild conspiracy.
Sounds like
if you can
own
like
the museum,
look at it and poke holes in it and be like, okay, well, here's the problems with your theory.
Mm-hmm.
Make it hold water.
Yeah.
Right. And then go from there. But being a skeptic is actually, I think, the most respectful way to go about somebody's story.
Yeah, and they do it respectfully. They come from a skeptic, but they also like, and we'll talk about it, Chicago O'Hare in modern times has lots of Mothman sightings. They allow, the people who claim to have seen it, they do post what they said they saw. So, it's skeptical, but at the same time respectful.
Right.
So
they're open. They're objective, I think is a great way to put it.
So I bring us back to the John Keel book because after he writes the book, some of the people are now reporting what they saw in a different manner. They're reporting it like there's men in black suits visiting town. They're interviewing everybody. The beast, is making people are getting phone calls before bad things happen. People, those animals are acting weird and there's weird stuff going on the TVs. And so this is all from this fiction book, but now because it's coinciding with a, cryptid
they're facts
phenomenon.
After the fact, right? After the story,
people are kind of recollecting both things into one memory, and it causes a lot of the stories to have this like, the first story.
Well, it kind of taints it.
Well, what I thought was cool, what I learned, it's not really cool for her, but those two couples, one of the women went into shock afterwards. She was so terrified.
She gave her shock therapy?
No, she went
They
into
electrocuted
shock.
her?
Her body went into shock.
Oh. She went into shock after seeing this.
Yeah, and this is kind of like, the Falk monster, they were terrified and moved their home.
That's true.
So I think on both are real sightings of it. I mean, he was pretty upset in his original article that, I said was from actual 1966 that from Athens Messenger, he was upset. He was like, I want people to see it because I want them to be as terrified as I was when I saw it.
Dang.
So we go back and we start harping back to that, if you're the one who actually sees it, what do you say? And I think that kind of perfectly leads into the Chicago Hare sightings. Because
a lot of people were not really sure if they should report these things because it's a new age also. Like
that's another thing.
There's
Like
so
the
much
60s
more-
feels so far removed from where we're at now.
Because it is. Because there's so much more labeling. It's like, okay, you saw this. Well, we have the best technology, obviously, that we've ever had.
Yeah.
Surveillance. What we would know. Somebody would know type of thing.
I feel like we're a lot more jaded of a society, too, that if someone says something crazy, everyone's like, pfft,
Yeah,
that
guy's bipolar.
The guy's on crack,
Well.
But anyway, so a lot of, again, the Y-Files, definitely YouTube to check out because they have...
They do a great job.
Yeah, they had a lot of the modern reportings, which are pretty creepy because a lot of them are employees of Chicago Hare's Airport. And they're so creeped out about it, they wanted to tell someone, but they knew that people would be jaded and no one wanted to risk their jobs. So they didn't want to make a lot of official statements on this subject. But they have they use their words and they read that the Y-Files reads, what they said their testament was and of the events. And at Chicago Hare, a security guard reports seeing a large humanoid creature with red eyes and large wings take off in flight after being seen by him. He thought it was like a trucker down in this creek.
Where was this at? Landing strip?
It was just on right outside of the airport.
Oh, okay.
In one of the creeks next to it.
Okay.
And so he thought, someone was just going to the bathroom.
He was just
down
catching some water.
Yeah. So he was just, but anyways, he shines his flashlight down there.
He's like, I'm just tired of being so dusty all the time.
And so, yeah, he sees these large red eyes staring at him and takes off in flight. And it said scare the hell out of him.
I bet.
But he also said, hey, I'm about to retire. I don't want to risk any of my job security. I know people are going to think I'm crazy. There's no way I'm going forward with my name on this.
Okay.
I don't blame him.
No, I agree with that. I think you don't tell anybody if you're close
But your
to
job
pension.
is security, If
you're close to catching your pension.
you're making the rounds, you see some really crazy stuff, which I'm sure they see lots of crazy stuff outside of Chicago Airport. But if it's, it creeps you out to the point where it's like, hey, I got to tell someone, but I'm not going to risk my pension over this.
Right.
It's
like, whoa, I ran into some squatters.
Yeah.
With wings.
And then a pilot on a railway.
Furry head.
Yeah, that's the furry head's I think one of the creepiest parts.
I think it's meth.
But the furry head definitely creeps me out.
Well, because it's short, like you said.
Yeah, it's short like a moth.
It's 7 foot tall, but its torso must be huge.
Yeah.
If it's got stubby legs, because it don't.
Well, it's got stocky legs, so they're thick. They're
stocky.
Yeah, like they're
Dang, he's caking it.
Yeah,
he's squatting. I kind of like this guy. Yeah. Well, he's got a huge head, like a mascot head.
That's what a mascot
Buckeye.
head's a good one.
Like Ohio State, the Buckeyes, right?
Ooh, that's not gonna go well with.
Well, I'm
Virginia
just saying,
fans.
like the shape, the dimensions, right? But furry. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, well, they're not the same. It doesn't matter. But furry Buckeye head, just tree trunks.
Absolute tree trunks. And when you look at pictures,
What you think
of him,
he squats?
it doesn't even look like he has knees. They're so stocky.
Really?
Yeah, it looks weird.
What do you think he squats?
That's probably why he runs weird. He probably runs like Forrest Gump, like when he's still a child with those braces on.
Oh yeah. What do you think he squats?
Not much.
7 foot. That's why. What do you think he deadlifts?
Still not
Ton.
much.
Why?
Because he takes off in flight. Now, if you ask, I guess he could use his wings
He's
to
7
lift
foot
it.
tall. Think of the leverage.
Yeah, maybe.
You think he's on creatine? Maybe he's just hitting it up for TRT. Maybe he's just like, Doc, I've been feeling really lethargic lately, and I'm telling you my drive's not up.
Yeah.
And what you got for a moth?
The moth misses isn't very happy.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna go into that one.
Well, I mean, he's a good looking moth.
I don't know what pictures you're looking at this moth. He's not a good looking moth.
For a moth.
Yeah, I mean, he has to
jacked.
be king of the moths.
He's the alpha moth.
Yeah. But
anyways.
Yeah, so back to these sightings though, the pilot, and they bleep out where he works at, which I thought was a great touch. Even if they don't say anything, and the bleep out makes it feel more real.
You know it's United. It's Chicago.
Spirit.
Yeah.
Spirit Airways.
Yeah.
They're like, ooh, we're just gonna
definitely Alaskan.
beep that one out.
With the latest
Alaska
flying off, it's Alaskan Airlines.
So the pilot was on a railway headed in for his flight. You know, the little like
the tram thing, yeah.
And he looks out and sees this freaking creature staring at him with these giant red eyes, and then just takes off.
He takes off, or the moth takes off?
Moth takes off. Mothman.
Up in the air, straight up?
Yeah.
Bad. That's nice.
And then an air traffic controller, who I trust a lot, air traffic controllers.
You do?
Yeah.
Why?
I do. I just take their word for it.
You just think they got it all figured out?
They have such a serious job.
It is kind of like...
It is a serious like job.
Logistics with human lives on the line. Like real-time logistics. Not like, did we get the lettuce this week?
Yeah, like 99.999%. Like you got to be
the standard
on top
deviation
of it.
Is tiny.
Otherwise, lots of lives are lost. And so I just kind of take... not that I take it over the pilot, but pilots can be tired. You know, I'm scrutinizing all these.
They have a limited view of what's going on. They only know their own cargo.
Yeah, so
right.
But the air traffic controller had to go on a mandatory break because FAA regulations, they go on mandatory breaks. And on its return from the break, it sees this moth creature kind of like land to the ground next to a light pole, and was kind of just like staring at the ground.
On brand.
Yes, just kind of like staring at the ground, kind of like zoned out, not paying attention. And then a vehicle startles it. It starts making this crazy chirping sound and takes off into the air. Now, the chirping sound kind of hit home with me because they report in that Athens Messenger that those original couples said it was like a record playing like a mouse chirping, but like super fast and repetitively.
Like, I'm trying to get...
I'm thinking like a grasshopper, like...
What the?
But super fast.
That's like a cicada.
Yeah, like a cicada would be.
Like that's like a construction worker. hey, toots, right?
That's very specific.
Well, I mean, that's what you did. You went side mouth with it. I'm trying to.
The hey toots is what I'm referring to.
Well, I mean, that's what a construction worker.
It's a very specific construction worker.
The 30s would say.
Okay, now we're honing it. That's what I'm saying. You just said construction worker would say.
From the 30s. You didn't let me
They're
finish.
listening like, what the heck
I'm not
did
taking
I
that
do?
out. I stand by that.
What did
Everyone
I do?
knows that.
All the construction fans like, Dad, is that you? Is that what you say?
I used to do some construction. Don't worry about it. Wait, let me.
Now you sound like the hey toots
I'm
guy.
trying to do. No, it was all guys. It would not go over well. I'm trying to do the. You said it was a chirp, like a very fast chirp.
Yeah, but I think it's kind of like more like it's supposed to sound like a cicada. So one of the articles that sounded terrible. That's gonna come through the audio. Just like
He's like, dude, the air traffic control. Like, did you fart?
Yeah. But yeah, so it says it like it. Watches it kind of like land, stumble. I saw that your veins were
hard.
popping. Yeah, so
I tried to get a high pitch.
Yeah, it didn't.
I couldn't reach it.
It didn't look or sound like I think you hoped. Nice silent pause there. Let that one.
You get nothing from me on that. You don't get any of my addition.
The air traffic controllers return from break, sees it land, gets startled by the car, takes off into flight though. Watches it take off. Oof. Said in 2 seconds it was out of sight.
And this is what year?
I think 2021.
Which is after COVID.
I know it's from 2019 to 2021. All three of these signs are after 2019. Mm. And I think actually though there have been sightings for 12 years at Chicago O'Hare. Consistently, having sightings of the Mothman.
So why is he hanging around Chicago?
I'm going with bright lights.
It's the lights. It's got to be.
He's a fiend. He can't help himself.
He just has to go into like Willis Tower or something. Just like smack his head on it. And then he goes back.
Well, if you think like moths, like especially rural, like they'll be on barns, like completely spread out against the barn wall, and some of them look gorgeous, but most of them just creep me out.
Moths
So
are
I can't
disgusting.
imagine if it was just like across a building with a 10 to 12 foot.
A moth is a
wingspan.
homeless butterfly.
Homeless butterfly.
Yeah, like a moth is just it's not good.
Yeah,
It's a bad butterfly.
Yeah.
It's a down on its luck.
I guess I don't even know what moths do.
I think a moth was expecting to become a butterfly and got dealt a bad hand. 7-2 offsuit. And like dust came out. He's like, I'm just
Gray, brown too.
like
And
dead.
like, you know,
Like a
butterflies are
dead
gross in their own right, but they're like, you know, pollinating. They're doing, you know, what does a moth do besides, you know, pose a
Don't
threat
they like
for
eat
old
fabric
clothes?
and stuff?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They pose a threat for old clothes. Maybe there's like a lot of like fabric companies in Chicago or something. It's it's that
actually.
like the golden corral of
Yeah.
America for it.
It's like the fashion district has been destroyed by these things.
But it's crazy. There's like no reports of like attacks or anything like that. So it's like it doesn't.
Because I told you he's a loner. He goes downtown, right? Is that Lakeshore, Lakeview?
I don't know.
I can't remember. Anyway, catches the lights, goes home, listens to Radiohead. I'm a creep.
I was gonna let you keep going with it.
I'm a weirdo.
I mean, that's what I had hoped that the Mothman does. I think I would have so much more appreciation for the Mothman if he's going home and just rocking out to Creep by Radiohead.
Yeah, he is.
I wonder.
He sleeps on the wall.
I hope he has like AirPods.
AirPods?
I can imagine someone
For his
dropped him.
giant head. I wonder.
It's a great Apple plug.
It is a good Apple plug. We're not sponsored.
So, I guess like,
Do you think he sees Batman and is just like in the 60s especially, right?
well, probably not.
He's like
Probably
jealous.
If you're fighting Batman in any part of his comic history, you're getting your butt whooped. They write
He's
Batman
like-
pretty heavy. Batman.
Yeah, I know, but he's like, I'm a moth, man. And he just looks at the bat, and he like the bats like you know how they always stand on top of the building,
Yeah.
like waiting, like looking down. Like, Spider-Man always did that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like they're looking down on the city to see like who they need to go save,
Yeah.
and Mothman's just watching Batman, trailing him,
Dude, I wish
shadowing him, all these years,
I wish these cryptids had like
just
more
jealous,
like, arsenal to them.
like powers.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Because like,
Like
we're
if he
already
was
pretty
into
much there. We're
Justice
pretty
League,
much already at like their comic characters.
well, imagine he's applying for the Justice League.
Yeah.
What do you say? They're like, well, we've got this. Like it's Batman. He's interviewing Mothman. He's like, what do you bring to the table? He's like, I'm a moth
right after Superman interviews.
man. Yeah, yeah,
Well, as long as you don't have Krypton, I'm pretty much
Yeah.
indestructible.
yeah. I'm pretty much a cheat code. Like I can't die at all.
Next up, we have Mothman. Can
Yeah.
Mothman come to the front
Mothman.
desk?
He's like, oh, he's so. They're like, he's so.
He
dusty.
stands up and it's just dust all over the chair. I don't even know where we're at in this.
He's like ugly. We got an image to keep.
Yeah, you can even.
Did you see his eyes? They were 6 inches apart.
Yeah, I mean, looks like
He
a
doesn't have
villain.
skills. He doesn't know how to fight. He runs. He flies and scares.
But I think the thing that, again, with these cryptids, which you know, we kind of harped on a bit in the Falcon Monster, is I guess I feel more for the people who like were in these stories.
Oh, of course. They saw something.
If you were so terrified your body went into shock.
Yes. You know that because nobody else can experience that. You like they can't relate because they weren't like whatever you saw, Mothman or not, sent you into shock. Like something happened.
Yes, you were
I do
sent
fully
into
believe
shock.
that. Yeah.
And then all these people then come and claim they've seen Mothman, and they kind of like dilute your story heavily. They're like, "Oh, I saw him. He was crazy. Like he just took off in flight, and everything was cool though.
And he took down that bridge."
Yeah.
And you get lumped into these.
Yeah,
like,
and so that's what I'm saying.
conspiracy
Like, and then again, everyone's so jaded, especially
and
now.
you're just dealing with the trauma.
Yeah, I just want people that are listening, if we have any listeners yet, to like sit and think. Like, if you saw Mothman or you saw Falcon Monster or any of these cryptids today, you couldn't get your phone out in time. You have no evidence whatsoever, but you know for a fact. Say it's just broad daylight, and you know for a fact you just saw Mothman. 100% unequivocal. You just encountered the Mothman.
He was flying directly toward the sun.
Yeah. You could see everything about him.
Yeah.
Would you pick up the phone and call anyone besides your immediate family? Would you? I mean, honestly.
I don't know. I mean, I look, for me, if I'm being completely honest,
I'm staying with
I think that's refreshing honesty. I think it's a demon.
Yeah.
Or an angel. I mean, I think
now a lot of people do believe it is a demon
that
or
cryptids exist or paranormal. There's no. I mean, I have every right to say like, okay, spiritually, I think in the spiritual realm, why can't this be? Why can't it be a messenger or a harbinger of doom?
Yeah.
Or a messenger.
A lot of people do believe
it.
it is a demon. A lot of people do believe it's an angel, and a lot of people believe it's alien, extraterrestrial.
I think it makes more sense for it to be earthly than an extra, because of the wings, because it resembles a moth, which is an earth creature. I think there's too many things, plus biblical history, demons, wings, things like that. Like I think that. Yeah, I think sure. Why not? Why can't it be a demon or?
All I know is whatever it was, it scared the living crap out of that couple to send one of the people into shock, and that's where I'm like, they were so terrified by it, they had no problem telling the news outlets, like, hey, there's something
100%.
crazy creepy up there, and then when thousands of people go up there with guns and are making false sightings or not seeing anything.
So real quick, how do you think this relates to Chief Cornstalk? Was it Cornstalk?
Yeah. So I mean, a lot of people
Cursed
think that,
land.
He brought about the existence of Mothman by cursing the land.
That's a stretch, though. That's like 200 years.
It is. But if you're talking about cryptids, and kind of the reason not that I want to change topics, but kind of want to go to more concrete stories, it's because with these cryptid stories, you're kind of pulling from whatever source that kind of ups your story's credibility.
Right. Everything's a bit of a tall
Chief
tale.
Cornstalk thing did happen.
Right.
100%
but
happened.
Is it
in
100% connected? And that's what's tough. And there's a lot of things you're like, is this connected? And you only have eyewitness testimony.
Yeah,
you don't have any actual hard evidence.
I don't know. Again, I'm like at the X-Files. Like I want to believe that original couple saw something so terrifying. That it sent her into shock. You hear that and you're just like, dang, like.
Well, okay. Real quick, worst X-Files episode.
The
for
inbred
me,
family.
For me, the what?
There's like an episode where the family's kind of like inbred and they look disgusting, and they like beat the crap out of this family with baseball bats.
I vaguely remember that.
Yeah, it like terrorized me as a child. Like that's the one that wrecked my dreams. No, it's my least favorite. It's the one that scared me the most.
My least favorite was. I never like wanted to watch.
Don't like
this.
any of them.
I know. The guy that he's actually a good guy, I guess.
Yeah.
But he eats people to take their ailment. Like this woman has cancer.
Yeah.
And he eats her.
Yep.
Alive.
And then
throws her up into a jello mold in a cave.
100%. Not a jello mold.
And she comes back.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, what is it?
Like a
Play-Doh
cocoon,
mold?
I imagine. Like a little cocoon or pod.
I thought it was like.
And then she kind of like is.
And she comes back and she's cancer free.
Yeah, because
he absorbs the cancer.
Yeah, and he looks disgusting.
He is disgusting. He was like, I can help you. He goes to the husband, right? He's like, I can help you.
Oh my gosh.
And he's like, who are you? And he's like, I can eat her. Cancer. Or something like that. It scared the lights out of me. It ruined me.
It is one that honestly...
And then you have to sleep and like...
Yeah, that's the worst
Pitch
part.
black,
Is
come
we'd
on.
be like eating like apple pie and stuff, and like just
And
trying
Grandma's
to watch.
laughing.
Yeah, she's just laughing, having the time of her life, rewinding it to the scary parts again.
And Dad's just numbed.
Yeah, and Grandma's house was terrifying because this is super rural,
Yeah, there's nothing around.
and her floors all creak. They're all old wood floors. It was just a terrifying home. And then I just remember like when the lights are out, there's nothing around. So it's pitch black and you're just hearing wind chimes and like
She had a lot of wind chimes.
and all the animals just moving outside.
That's right.
Just absolutely haunt you. I didn't sleep for a week. Every time we'd visit, I would just be up all night, just staring out the windows and waiting for daytime.
Only thing scarier is Wizard of Oz,
Nah.
in my opinion. We'll get into that. We'll get into that another time. Don't have time for that.
Yeah, I think we have some really cool episodes coming up.
We do. We have awesome things coming up. I'm super excited about it.
I am excited to get, like I said, a little bit back into like the kind of the concrete stories of like...
Well, yeah, I mean, this was a series. We're going to go over a huge range of things. Just honestly, we're just going to go over interesting things.
Yeah, and really cool stories, things, like real true stories too that we think are interesting. I guess I'm excited after all this cryptid. My brain can't handle like, is it real? Is it not real?
Right.
I'm reading all these testimonies and stories, and
We're
and
not Scully and
like,
Mulder.
yeah, it's like I can't do anything about it. I can't even research this further.
Right.
Mine is going out there, which I won't do. It's against my life policies that.
To go out where? And like hunt yourself?
No, to like look for Mothman, that's against what I do.
You sit back.
Yeah, I watch all these horror movies, and
I'm a frontline skeptic.
I know for a fact I wouldn't be a part.
real.
I know for a fact I would be not in any of these horror movies because I would never be at those locations.
They're like, hey, we're going out to this abandoned farm in Texas. It's just a couple of us. You should come. No.
Yeah, me and my friends are going to the graveyard tonight. You want to go? No, I'm definitely not going.
You're not interested to see what kind of spooky... No, Jennifer, I'm not interested.
Far from it.
And like, I'm not interested in trotting out there in your Corolla so that it won't start.
This is sounding like a true story now.
I mean, I don't know that I know it, Jennifer, honestly.
I didn't know you were like Corolla, silver Corolla doesn't start.
I didn't say silver.
See, this is how the stories start.
It was a silver Corolla. Didn't start.
There was Men in Black.
Yeah.
But, yeah, well, definitely think about what we talked about as far as if you would call.
Yeah, think about if you would report it. That's really all that's left for you to chew on. And super excited about the next couple of things we've got. We won't spoil it here, but we had a lot of fun. We hope you guys did too.
Alrighty.